Welcome back to the Saturday Scholars College Football Podcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. That is in. I am Shub, and today we are here to do Week 7 recap. Let's go, man. Welcome back. We're shuffling the deck here on the Saturday Scholars Podcast. Last week we were Zanless. Today we are Gonzoless. But either way, hey, two-man rotation works. Let's go. OG Zan and Shub pod here today.
Hey, at least there's a common denominator. Shub never missing a day. No sick days for Shub. But hey, man, let's how's your week been? How you been doing, man? I know the Fish are no longer in the playoffs. They didn't do too well in their little wild card run, but what else is going on in the Shub universe?
Yeah, that's old news, but it makes me feel better that the Phillies are making a run and probably going to go to the World Series. So at least they lost to a hot team, I guess, if you want to put it that way. But yeah, man, just busy with work and everything. Same old, same old. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, we all have full-time jobs. So this is all we do this in our free time, but we do it because we love it. That's why we're here. Well, man, you ready to get going? Let's start with Oregon, Washington.
Yeah,
I think that's the
yeah. You absolutely have to start with Oregon, Washington. That was like game of probably the year. I don't think there's going to be another game like it this season, including playoffs, including everything up like. Unless there's a rematch in the Pac-12 championship, then I take it back. Then there might be another game of the year. But that game was phenomenal, man. I mean, Oregon missing a field goal to not send that to overtime. I was kind of hoping for overtime, but at the same time, I'm really glad Washington was able to win that game. Such a good game, man. Such a great performance from Michael Penix. They got the run game going. Great performance from Oregon, too. Like, both of these teams looked really, really good. It was legitimately just two good football teams going at each other. Neither team... Like, really, you could point at and say, you know, this was not a good performance from either team. I think Oregon arguably was slightly better in this, but some of their risky behavior and all the fourth downs that they went for ultimately cost them in the end, considering they only lost by 3 points. And they failed to convert on, like 3 or 4 fourth down attempts in scoring position. So, I mean, Dan Lanning himself said that the only one that he wished he could have back was the one right before halftime. But other than that, I mean, they take one of those field goal attempts. It's a much different game.
Absolutely. Risky behavior. That's a great way to describe it. Yeah, Oregon was 0 for 3 on fourth down conversions, and all 3 of those were in very pivotal moments of the game in Washington territory. 2 of them were inside the 10, I believe, or at least inside the 15, 20. But yeah, listen, we were texting each other live when this happened, and I think there's going to be a lot of debate over these decisions, and obviously people get the benefit of hindsight because they didn't work out. But in the moment, I honestly didn't have a problem with all 3 of them. The first one before halftime, I actually probably would have leaned going for the field goal if I was Lanning, but I didn't mind the decision to go for it. And it's, again, we're judging the decision, not the result, because we can all judge the result and say, oh, well, they missed it. They shouldn't have gone for it. Well, you got to judge it based off of what the decision was before the play happened. And yeah, I'd say it did cost Oregon the game pretty much, but you know, the decisions was right at the time with the information that Dan Lanning knew. And I liked what you said about just both teams just going at it and being 2 good teams playing each other. That was literally what this game was. Oregon actually outgained Washington by a huge yardage margin, I think 415 to 410 yards. But post-game win expectancy still had Washington winning this game 59% of the time, which was a little interesting to me. I mean, obviously, everybody watched this game. I'm sure if you're listening, you probably watched this. Oregon could have won this game, no doubt about it. And the receivers stepped up on both teams. I mean, you had Troy Franklin stepping up, making huge plays, Tez Johnson, and then on Washington side, Odunze made some crazy catches. Even the tight ends, Westover made a really nice catch there to save a Washington drive. This is what I loved about this game, is that all the receivers for both teams were like really stepping it up and making insane catches. It was phenomenal to watch.
I was telling you when we were kind of like live texting each other during this game, like this is one of those games that just had one of those old rivalry pre-NIL, pre-social media feels, because that was just like pure, like, I'm going to kick your ass. I hate you. Like, I'm better than you. Coming after each other like they were hitting each other hard. They were all playing so physical, and it was so refreshing because you just don't see that nowadays. Like all the recruits that go play at all these schools, they're all friends with each other now because of the advent of social media. They're all like, "Oh, you go get yours, King. Oh yeah, you do you, baby. Yeah." Before social media, people didn't have all that outreach. So it was just like, bro, I hate you. You play for my rival. Like, I'm going to kick your ass. And that's what this game was. That's what this game was. And it was so refreshing to see. They were playing hard. They were going after each other. They were jawing. They were chirping. I mean, it was such a great game. It was so refreshing, man. And ultimately, both teams deserve to win here. But unfortunately, in the game of football, it's not soccer. You can't have a tie. So only one team could walk out with a win here.
You know what
Good for
really
Washington,
sucked?
though.
You know what really sucked for me, man, is that my stream cut out right as Oregon was lining up to kick that field goal to send it to
Oh,
OT. I
oh,
was
that's rough.
so pissed. I was so pissed, man. And I turned it back on and I see Washington like storming the field. The field was already covered in purple like 10 seconds later. And I was like, oh, well, I guess they missed it. But I didn't get to react to it live, which is the best part about watching sports. But yeah, I let out a few bad words, if you could imagine there. I was all by myself alone, but it's all right. It's all right. I blame dish on that one. But anyways, so moving forward now after this game, I think we can all agree here Oregon and Washington are the best teams in the Pac-12, right? Like these were the best two teams. I don't think
Absolutely.
anybody has a doubt in their mind about
Absolutely.
that.
Especially
And
after what happened to USC. Absolutely. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
and selfishly, I kind of want to see these two teams rematch now because I think we're gonna get the
I
same
think you're gonna
thing.
get your wish. I think it's gonna
Yeah.
happen. I don't think USC could beat either one of these two teams.
Well, they get to play Washington. I know that. This was my next point to bring up was looking at the remaining schedules. Washington has Arizona State and Stanford next, which is nice before they go play at USC. And then they got USC, Utah at Oregon State, Washington State. So that back end is tough.
Oof. That's a rough back end, yeah.
But then if you're Oregon, obviously you have more of the tightrope to walk because Washington now still doesn't have a loss
The
in
head to
conference
head.
play. And if you're Oregon, I'm looking at the rest of the schedule. They are really going to have to walk the tightrope, man. Wazoo at Utah, Cal, USC at home. So we do see USC play both of these teams. And then they got at ASU and then Oregon State to finish off the year at home.
Mm-hmm.
So Oregon, it can be done. I think they can finish 11-1, but that's going to be a little tough.
I'll tell you right now, I would take a 2-loss Washington or Oregon and put them in the playoff over like a 1-loss Ohio State or Michigan. And that's just me. Like I know Michigan's looked really good, but also Michigan has played nothing but community colleges to this point. And they only play 2 games this season on their schedule. So if you asked me, I would take a 2-loss Oregon or Washington over a 1-loss conference champion, Big Ten conference champion. And look, I know we kind of argue for conference champions a lot. But this is a year where I'd make an exception to that rule. If we don't have auto bids just yet, it's only the 14 playoffs still. I want the 4 best teams in it. So honestly, the Pac-12 is a pretty dang good league this year. I'd say it's the most well-rounded league all in all this year, and you shouldn't penalize teams for playing an absolute grinder of a schedule. And that's where I stand with that. So I'm absolutely on Team Oregon or Washington.
We'll put it this way. If the Pac-12 was basically the SEC, if you just change that Pac-12 logo, it's the same teams, the same exact teams. You just throw SEC stickers on their jerseys. You have everyone and their mom talking about how that's a 2-bid playoff league this year. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So if anything, I'm thinking to myself, Pac-12, you can get 2 teams in the playoff this year, which would be the most hilariously ironic thing that they haven't had
Considering they're going to
team in
die.
it.
Yeah.
And
And
so
then the year
long.
they're going to die, they get 2 win.
That's man, it's just the way the sport works, man. It's hilarious.
I got to tell you, the Big Ten though, the commissioner and like everyone up there in the Big Ten brass over there, they don't need a Viagra today. They're over here looking at Washington and Oregon, and they're sitting there pretty stiff at what's coming to their league and all the viewership. So I gotta say, man, like they're getting the 2 best teams out of that league, and yeah, actually, and they're getting USC. Oh man, I'm telling you, they're about to have a shoegasm, a pure shoegasm right now. So
Well, do you want to talk about the one of those Pac-12 teams that will have a Big Ten sticker on their jersey or patch on their jersey, I should say, next year? And another team that everyone wants to have a Big Ten sticker, but they refuse because they want to stay independent. And that's Notre Dame and USC. How about this game, man? I got to watch this one. I had a lot of betting interest in this one, and I was successful, thankfully. It's been a rough year, but Caleb Williams, man, this was like probably the worst game that he's played in his career so
Oh,
far, and that's
absolutely.
including his freshman year at
I've never
Oklahoma.
seen him throw 3 interceptions. Never.
It was bad, man. And USC just looks so disorganized. Their offense just looks really disorganized, dysfunctional. Like pretty much Lincoln Riley's just saying, hey, it's the Caleb Williams show. Like, don't block, don't try to get open. Just let Caleb run around and be a Heisman guy, and we'll put up 50 points. But
Dude,
that's not
Notre
going to work
Dame
against Notre Dame.
Notre Dame is probably like the most unpredictable team I can possibly imagine. They go off last week and they get their breaks beat in by Louisville, who lost to Pitt, absolutely like dominated by Pitt, by the way, who's been absolutely atrocious this year. And then
But
they
they were
go
1-4.
and then they beat the brains out of the Caleb Williams USC led team. I just don't understand this team, Shub. I don't. I'm starting to think that Notre Dame didn't even prep for Louisville. They said, no, we are blowing our whole load on Caleb Williams. We are prepping for Caleb Williams for 2 weeks. I don't care what happens with Louisville. We are prepping for Caleb Williams. Because what else would make sense? They came out here and they thrashed them, a 28-point win against like probably like the undisputed #1 pick in next year's draft, like a pure generational talent, a guy that would like if they USC didn't have this guy, they'd probably be sitting there at like 4-3 now or 3-4. I mean, like legitimately impressive Notre Dame, but like what the hell were you doing last week?
I'm wondering that as well. I think all of us are wondering that, especially after our picks. Yeah, it doesn't make sense, but that's the beauty of college football, man, is that especially seasons like this, like where there's no dominant teams, I feel like we're seeing more of this stuff happen. And I feel like we're going to see more of it happen like in late October going into November, where there's just going to be teams upsetting each other week after week. And then they turn around and just blow stinkers the next week and vice versa. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, Washington State and Arizona, we'll get to that later, but like Washington State, what the absolute hell? Like, are you doing? I mean, you throw them in that bucket too. But anyways, as far as this game
Yeah.
though, listen, I was able to watch it. Yes, this final score is really bad, but keep in mind there was a 5-0 turnover margin in this game. USC, 3 interceptions by Caleb, 2 fumbles lost. If I'm not mistaken, didn't Notre Dame have 2 defensive touchdowns in this game? So they kind of did like Iowa box this thing a little bit,
I didn't
but
get to see the full game, so I don't know, unfortunately.
they were
How's the
still the
people in
better team.
Iowa?
They were still the better team, but
Yeah.
they definitely pulled some Iowa voodoo to make the final score a lot worse than it should have been. Let's put it that way. But yeah, it was a hell of a defensive performance from Notre Dame. The offense honestly didn't even really do that much because they kept getting short fields like gifted to them by USC. So, Notre Dame's offense is good enough to put points on the board when you only have like to go 25 yards. But other than that, they didn't really do anything. Yeah, Audric Estime,
Do you know who
#1 pick by me this last week. 2 tutties
Hey,
on the
nice,
ground.
nice pick. Nice pick. Of course, when I picked him, he didn't do anything. But the 1 week he didn't do anything, by the way. But yeah, man, let's jump back on a point you just made. Washington State, what the hell are you doing? Like we're sitting there, like, okay, Washington State looks good. Oh, Cam Ward. Oh. And as soon as we do that, man, Cam Ward decides to just play absolutely horribly. And you know what? I got to say this. Judge Fish has Arizona going in the right direction. They've got a really good quarterback behind Delora, who's looking like he's even better than Delora. And I got to say, man, when they join the Big 12 next year, they're kind of a dark horse to win the dang league. There's no OU, there's no Texas. The league has so much parity right now, and Arizona kind of looks pretty serviceable. Arizona's definitely looking like they could be a top half team in the Big 12 as early as next year. So definitely, man. I mean, what are your thoughts about this game?
Yeah,
44-6
well, first of all, let's talk about Arizona first because let's give
in
the victors
Pullman.
some credit here. Yeah, in Pullman, exactly. This is especially after how they lost in the fashion in which they lost to USC last week in overtime when they really should have won that game. So being able to get off the mat for that and go into Pullman and win this game is like insanely impressive in my opinion. And Arizona, like we made a short about them. We were kind of hyping them up. It is a good team in disguise. I mean, you could really, if you look at Arizona's losses here, all three of their losses, they lost in overtime to Mississippi State. They lost in overtime to USC, at USC and at Miss State, by the way. And then they lost by one score to Washington. That was only Washington's one dud game. Remember, we after that
They're
Arizona game,
pretty, yeah. Arizona's a
oh,
pretty good
Washington.
team.
Yeah, we were like, oh, Washington had a down game against Arizona. Well, no, I think it's just they played a pretty good team in disguise. And obviously, Washington's really good. We all know that. They're a top 5 team. So Arizona's just a good team, man. That's just at the end of the day. And those 3 losses are going to hold them back, but they are playing like a top 25 level team right now. You just kind of have to program that in your mind.
Absolutely.
And Noah Fafita, going to your point about them going into the Big 12 next year as a dark horse, it's not too early to talk about Arizona in the Big 12 next year because Noah Fafita is just a freshman, man. He is just a freshman. Yeah, the Big 12 better look out for Arizona next year.
I'm telling you, they're so well coached. I mean, you hold a Cam Ward led Washington State, and there's not many quarterbacks in the Big 12 better than Cam Ward to 6 points in his home stadium. So that's tough, man. That's tough. Arizona, it might be that they might rise to the top, man. We never like would have thought that about Arizona, considering they haven't been good in a long time. So it's crazy, man. But while we're on the topic of Pac-12, because the Pac-12 has been so fun this year, and I'll let you get to your thought, but I do want to get to the transition here. Oregon State next, but what's your thought, Shub?
I was just going to say real quick before we move on, what's the deal with Washington State? Because all of a sudden they had that big win against Oregon State, throw a dud against UCLA, throw a dud against Arizona. Cam Ward, that Heisman, remember his Heisman campaign that lasted like a week or two. Yeah. Very odd.
You know what's crazy, man, is I thought the week that Michael Penix played really well but threw no touchdowns, I thought, it's in the bag. Caleb Williams, Heisman, forget about it. Like, no one is going to top Caleb. And then all of a sudden, Caleb plays terrible. Penix plays really well in an absolute great game against a great opponent. And now I'm thinking it's a 2-man race again. It's Penix and Caleb Williams, legitimately. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. I'm hoping that come Heisman time, we will actually have no idea who's going to win it. Like, it's that close. That's what I hope for. Because usually when the Heisman comes around, you kind of know who's going to win it. But I'm hoping that we finally actually get surprised, or at least don't know what the result is before it even happens.
Yeah, the years where you don't actually know who's going to win, which is far and few between, but every once in a while we get those years where you literally actually don't know who's going to win. Those are the best. But don't feel like we've had many of those in recent years.
I can't remember the last one, but yeah. But anyway, man, let's stick in the Pac-12. Oregon State, they're such a good team. I don't know how they lost to Washington State. They're sitting there at 6-1. Great late snag in the team draft for Team Shub, being a 6-1 dog there. And I thought I was so slick with taking 2 Pac-12 teams. And, I mean, it's still panning out to some degree. But could have got Oregon State later. But still, hey, man, this was the difference maker here. And I think it's because Dante Moore was a freshman and had 3 interceptions. That's the difference here. Ultimately, Corvallis, Washington State, really well coached. Freshman QB. Yeah, Beavs. Beavs all the way, man. Such a good team.
Their defense really carried the torch for them in this game, in my opinion. The offense still did pretty well. DJU is having a better season statistically. He is sort of living up to the billing, in terms of us saying he's guaranteed to improve. Probably not going to turn into Michael Penix by any means, but he is going to improve and at least live up to somewhat of what his 5-star recruiting ranking a few years ago suggested he would. And that's all Oregon State needs, especially in this offense, to do a lot. You're very run heavy. You got Damian Martinez. You got Deshaun Fenwick to hand the rock to. You got that offensive line, which is one of the best in the country. They have good receivers too, good tight ends. DJU doesn't have to do a whole lot to make this team go and roll down the hill. But yeah, for UCLA, man, I mean, I kind of saw this one coming. I don't think this should be a surprising result at all. Dante Moore, I've heard a rumor on another podcast a while ago that apparently the reason why Dante Moore is starting for UCLA is that he threatened to transfer if he didn't get any playing time. And that kind of makes sense because arguably there are better quarterbacks behind him on the roster that could probably start for UCLA right now and probably deliver better results than Dante Moore is delivering
Colin
right now.
Schlee, I thought was going to be like the decision just because he's so experienced.
Right.
Garbers, I was
I was
surprised
shocked.
when they trotted him out there, but Colin Schlee, I mean, with the pedigree and the success that he had in his career, and he transfers to UCLA, it's kind of disappointing that you're going to spend your last years on the bench and not even get to put any tape on for the NFL scouts. That's very disappointing. And what I would tell Dante Moore, if that is true, if I was Chip Kelly, I'd be like, okay, then give your NIL deal back. I mean, we're paying you to be here. Yeah, you don't get that luxury, and people need to know this. And this is one thing that's kind of an issue with NIL. This is why I think we need, at least with some kind of contract, that like there have to be limits, like 2-3 years, maybe not maybe a full thing, but you have to stay for at least 2 or 3 years to get like the full maturation of your NIL money. That way you can't just pull like a Quinn Ewers, go to Ohio State for a year, redshirt, make $1 million and leave and go to the school you actually wanted to, being Texas. Like you should not be allowed to do that whatsoever. And it should also allow you to make a more informed decision. You know what I mean? About where you're going to go. I'm tired of seeing kids hop in the portal just because I'm not playing immediately, or, oh, these guys are offering a bigger bag. Look, I think you should get one transfer. Unless you have like some extenuating circumstances, I think you should get one transfer and that's it. And it should be after like a predisposed amount of time, like at least 2 seasons. So that's just my take on it. But aside from that tangent, Shub, let's get going. Let's move on. I think we can segue out of the Pac-12. Those were kind of the top dogs to talk about here. Let's go ahead, and I just want to bring this one up briefly, just because of the way this game ended. And you know what? I feel bad for this fan base. Boise, man. God, they're having a bad year.
Oh, man.
They were they were dominating Colorado State, and then Colorado State pulls this crazy comeback on them. And this is not the first time Boise has pulled this crap. I remember this when I picked them against you guys in the spread. Boise was smashing. I believe it was Memphis.
Memphis,
Yep.
That was a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Them. They were smashing them, and then Memphis just comes back and absolutely beats them. And then the same thing happens again against Colorado State. Man, I mean, they're up 30-10 in the fourth quarter
with like 7 minutes left. See, I have the luxury of being on the West Coast, so I can be a degenerate and stay up and watch those late night Mountain West games. And it was the only game on. I already had the team draft like Google Doc set, and I literally was ready to put the one, give a 1 point to Team Boomer for Boise State because he has them in the draft. And then I literally have it on one, and then I like on the corner of my eye I see, oh, Colorado State got an onside kick. All right. Oh, touchdown, like 2 plays later. Okay. All right. Well, there's just no shot they get another onside kick. Oh, well, they got a second onside kick. And then they scored a touchdown. Man. And then they got a third onside kick, but then it got called back because of a penalty. But then, of course, they stopped Boise 3 and out, Casey Dunn style, get the ball back, call timeouts. And then they somehow scored with like 15 seconds on the clock and got that Hail Mary to walk it off. Yeah, just absolutely bizarre. If you just want to see like a crazy ending to a game that, like, if you're playing NCAA 14 and the computer just wants to completely like screw you over, that's exactly what happened to Boise. But yeah, that sucks, man. I can't imagine.
Being a Boise fan, man, this is like the worst season they've had in a long time. And they've lost 2 games where they were in the driver's seat, the absolute driver's seat. So that's got to be tough, man. It's really got to be tough.
So really quick, since we're on the topic, I want to parlay this last Boise game into the West Virginia-Houston game because
Thursday night, yeah, another Hail Mary. 2 in 1 week. 2 in 1 week. Do the people practice defending Hail Marys?
Apparently not. See, if I was a head coach, I probably wouldn't teach you to bat the ball down, because I feel like if you're sitting there trying to bat the ball down, you're just like opening the realm of possibility of like more tips and stuff. Because if you're trying to bat it down, what are the odds like it hits off your hand or there's someone in front of you? Because on Hail Marys, don't they always teach the offensive team to have like a guy that's kind of trailing, that's kind of waiting for
I don't even know. I was never coached on Hail Marys because back when I played, we never threw them. We were a running team, but
oh, well, it sucks to suck because the Hail Marys are always fun. But yeah, but anyways, if I was a coach, I would just say, just catch the ball. Like just catch the ball. Like, don't try to swat it on purpose, because somebody might catch the ricochet. And that's what happens on all of these whenever they do happen. So that's just my
It's
two
always something
cents.
crazy, man.
But
It's
I
always
mean,
something crazy.
what do I know? I mean, what do I know about coaching football? But
I
yeah,
could tell you we can watch it, we can know everything about it, but I promise you we don't know all the X's and O's that we think we know. And
no,
I can say that
100%.
for certain after listening to some of these coaches talk that I don't know all the X's and O's, but I mean some things are just common sense. Some things you can say like, look, that's how it's not working and you keep doing it. That's stupid. But
But
anyway,
that was
let's
Gonzo's
move
grudge,
on.
by the way. He wanted to give out a honorary Gonzo grudge to West Virginia and Boise State for not defending their respective Hail Marys. So we'll play the graphic here.
And I can't believe it, man, because West Virginia was so close to what being 5-1.
Yep. And they'd
All they
still
had to
be
do was
undefeated
just
in
bat that
conference
Hail
play.
Mary down. But hey, man, like good for Houston. I mean, like slight props to Houston because I took them on the over, so that gives me some hope for their over.
Dude, they might
Um,
get it.
they might. I'm not really sold on it. They got really lucky in that game. They have to get lucky in two more to get that. But we'll see. But anyway, speaking of a team that I feel I was kind of right on, but we'll see. There's still some season left. NC State gets absolutely thrashed by a Riley Leonardless Duke team. NC State sucks. Like I know they're 4-3, but like the bottom half of the ACC is terrible. NC State sucks. Like they are not a good football team. Brennan Armstrong is not a good quarterback, even though he didn't really play in this one, so I can't really just jump to that. But he did not. He hasn't been playing well this season. MJ Morris didn't really do any better. Dude, they got beat by a quarterback, Mr. Balin the Fourth here, who sounds like a dang king. Like the freaking king or Duke of Yorkshire over
His
here
name
is
is
playing for Duke.
Henry
Henry,
Balin the Fourth.
yeah, Henry Balin the Fourth here, reporting for duty
Four of
to play
12.
quarter thrower, and he went 4 of 12 throwing the
Gosh.
football. They still won the dang game. I mean, like 24-3. Like it's absolutely nuts, man.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch this one because I did not expect a good performance from Duke, but this is one of those weird like outlier games where I don't know if you follow the stats of War Guy on Twitter. He actually believe he puts out a graphic every week depicting which teams like had better success rates versus who. And on a down for down basis, NC State did have a better success rate than Duke, but obviously Duke still won the game. Duke had a 97% win expectancy. You know, it's not an all end all be all stat, but I just thought that it's one of those like weird quirky things where, you know, I didn't get to watch it, but this just seems like one of those games where if you're an NC State fan, you're probably sitting there like, what the hell am I watching right now? And good for Duke, man. Hey, who says Riley Leonard was going to tank their season? Like that defense can hold their own just fine. Just fine. And honestly, I think the defense can carry them to whenever they play their next big game, which is wait a minute, that's this week. Never mind. Against FSU. I almost
FSU,
forgot about
man,
that.
we're gonna pick that one. But dude, Mike Elko, my God, man, it's not like Duke's pulling 4 or 5 stars over there, and their defense is just crazy. Even without having their stud quarterback, like they are still winning games. Um, Props to Mike Elko. I would be shocked if he like look if I'm Michigan State's AD, I'm over there and I'm like, here, Mike Elko, here's the bag, baby, come get it. Because honestly, he's got to be the best coach who has not been poached by a big school that's available right now. So hats off, man. I never thought I'd see Duke being respectable in football in my lifetime, and here it is. But anyway, let's keep it in the ACC, man, while we're here. A battle of what probably could have been the conference championship game or potential conference championship. We won't say that because FSU exists. UNC and Miami. Now, I will say I took the UNC over unconfidently, and you were on the UNC under, and it kind of your logic kind of made me want to flip back to the UNC under. I was like, dang it, I think he's got a point. Right now, it's looking like they're going over, man. UNC looks pretty dang good. UNC with a 41-31 win. Drake May bounces back 4 touchdowns. And look, Miami, they've looked better this year as well. But I don't know, man. UNC might be the second best team in the ACC this year, right behind Florida State.
Yeah, I'll take the floor here because I have a lot of sins to repent. I have a lot. I have slandered UNC. I have repeatedly tried to ignore their success this year. And I have said, I got to believe it to see it. I got to believe to see it. And I said last week, I finally was like, all right, this is it. I'm done. Like if they beat Miami, then I'm done saying that I want to see it to believe with UNC and keep doubting them. They're a good team. I did watch the game, however, And in the first half, I was extremely annoyed. In fact, I would like to give a Zandy bar to Miami, but since Gonzo's not here, I'll give an honorary Gonzo grudge. It's a Shub grudge this week to Miami for that first half. That was absolutely ridiculous. Miami fumbled the ball at the goal line. They had something else really weird happen. I forget because we're already midweek, but Miami had these crazy turnovers in the first half. I thought they were the better team in the first half, but then credit to UNC, they made adjustments. Drake May just was phenomenal in this game. 4 tutties, no interceptions. Honestly, Tyler Van Dyke played a hell of a game too. He put up 391 yards, but TVD just, he couldn't get it done at the end of the day, especially when the defense couldn't stop UNC in this rushing attack. Well, Marion Hampton, we always talk about all these great running backs, and we think of UNC and you think they're an air raid team. They got Drake May, they got good receivers, yada, yada. But Marion Hampton at running back for UNC is very quietly having a phenomenal year. And I feel like he could start being a team draft guy, but we just don't want to go that direction because we think UNC is a passing team. But week after week, Marion Hampton, 197 yards on the ground, 8.2 yards per rush. He had a touchdown on 24 carries. He's
Good
having a
player.
great year. But with all that being said, UNC still does have Devontae Walker, who is finally eligible to play. Thank God.
He killed it in his first game, man. 2
He
tutties.
did kill it. Yeah.
Man. But I also think there might be a little. I feel like no one has tape on Devontae Walker and how he's going to be utilized in the UNC game. I feel like after this, maybe the coverage gets a little bit better against Devontae Walker. Then again, I don't know. But still, he was kind of an unknown commodity going into that game, coming from a different school. So maybe there's something to be had there. I don't know. We will see if that can be replicated in this upcoming season. But nonetheless, Devontae Walker is a good player.
He definitely is. And if you're UNC, so now you're 6-0. You look like probably the second best team in the ACC. I think we all agree on that, right? So look at their schedule. They got Virginia next. They got at Georgia Tech, and they have Campbell. They're probably going to be 9-0 going into that Duke game. They have Duke at home, and then they got to go at Clemson and then at NC State to finish the year. So there's a pretty good chance UNC is going to be 9-0. They're probably going to be ranked inside the top 10 by then, I would imagine. That's when the playoff rankings come out. So be prepared, guys. I think UNC is going to be coming out of the college football playoff rankings, 9-0, probably ranked inside the top 10 by when we get to that point. And they're looking like one of the 2 favorites to get to the ACC championship game, if you're going to ask me. They have the head-to-head over Miami. They have the head-to-head over Syracuse, who's out of the picture now. But, yeah, they have the chance to play Clemson and Duke.
The only team outside of the obvious ones that could potentially, compete for that lost to Pitt this week. Louisville, 6-1. 6-1, man. And let's go ahead and take our tour through the snake oil state real quick since we're at it. The snake oil state, and it will be referred to as until proven different. And I know the records don't necessarily reflect that, and that's exactly why it's the snake oil state, because these teams are not as good as their records reflect. 6-1 Louisville. Okay, I thought maybe I was wrong about the snake oil salesman whenever they went through and beat Notre Dame. I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll eat some crow, or maybe Notre Dame was just waiting to blow their wad on Caleb Williams. That's what I'm thinking.
It's a shame you were not on the pod last week to answer for that.
I know, right? I know, but hey, at least no one listens, right? No, I'm just playing. But hey, how the hell does Pitt, a team that has just been terrible this year, absolutely just take it to Louisville like this? I mean, 17-point win against a team that came into this game 6-0 and just came off a Notre Dame win. Was Louisville just like, man, we beat Notre Dame. We don't even have to prep for Pitt. Psh, we're good. Let's just go party this week. So what happened, man?
I have a Zan-esque thing to admit, and I know you like to do this. When it comes to betting, and obviously we know the units were a lot differently because we're talking about Shub here versus Zan, but I did very quietly take a money line flyer on Pitt to win this game. Yeah. And the only reason I did that is because I heard some statistic out there that Jeff Brom coach teams are 1-6, or they were 1-6 on games the following week after they had beaten the top 10 team. So Jeff Brom teams have had a history of really just crapping the bed after they beat really good teams. And so I
Wow,
was like,
interesting.
and I saw the spread was only
It's
like
it's it's
seven and a
legitimately
half.
a pattern for them. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's well, they call him big game Brom for a reason, but they don't call him, trap game Brom.
Yeah, he's
He's
like, you
not
pay me
trap
to
game
win the
Brom.
big one. You don't pay me to win them all. Like,
Yeah, seriously. So I took a money line flyer on Pitt, and I took a flyer again. It's a flyer for a reason. You expect to lose it most of the time, so it wasn't a whole lot of money, but I hit on it. It was like plus 275, and yeah, that made me feel good inside.
damn, Shub, you won $2.75.
Hey man, I'm off to bigger and better things, bigger units these days, but still
Hey,
not a
yeah.
whole
I mean,
lot,
hey,
much more than what you said.
working for a very very large company, I'll do that. Hey, but let's go ahead here. Any other ACC games you want to tackle? I know it's a rather big conference. Um, 'Cause there are quite a lot of games to mention on the docket this week that we could
We
bring
want to
up really
cover all the
quickly.
big ones, man, all the big games that happened. I think we've covered
There
most
are
of
a
the ranked
lot.
matchups. Let's head to the SEC. Let's head
Okay,
to the SEC. Tennessee and A&M. So
Spedfest.
yes, it was a sped fest. I was able to watch this game, and or at least I had it on the side. That the 12:30 slate or 12:30 Pacific, 3:30 Eastern time slot was just phenomenal. I had like four different screens going on all at
Yeah, you were
once.
texting me. You're like, dude, I got 4 games on right now. I'm like, I don't know how you can watch 4 games. Like, I got two, and I'm having trouble watching both. Like,
Was trying to watch my Gators, my Pokes, Oregon, Washington, Tennessee, A&M all at once, and it was a lot, but I loved it. Anyways, yeah, offense was nowhere to be found in this game. Both teams, it just seemed like it was hard for them to move the ball. It just was difficult. And that's not to be unexpected. Tennessee does have a really good defense. They are, if I'm not mistaken, Tennessee is inside the top 10 in defensive efficiency. They're 11th in defensive efficiency. So we think of Tennessee, we think of the high flying offense. They got a good defense, man. This defense is more efficient than the offense. Like people need to start thinking about that in their minds. Like Tennessee has a legit defense. And then A&M, everybody knows A&M has a great defense. A&M's strength is their defense, number 9 in efficiency. So it wasn't surprising to see this be a low scoring game, except we all know that both of these offenses probably are capable of doing a lot more than what they showed in this game. But it was a struggle, man. It was a struggle and a half. Max Johnson, 2 interceptions. He did not look great in this one. Milton was not great at all. Milton had completed 50% of his passes. Johnson, under 50% of his passes. Tennessee's had some problems with this year. The passing game just hasn't been there. The receivers haven't really stepped up kind of like they had last year. Everyone just kind of assumed Tennessee's receivers, well, in the system, oh, well, they're always going to have guys put up great numbers. It's not really happening this year.
I mean, they lost a lot, man. They lost the QB. They lost two really good wide receivers to the NFL, and they lost their OC. So, I mean, Tennessee was bound to take a step back, but I guess we thought the veer and shoot could overcome. But look, I know Joe Milton can throw it 80, 90 yards, but that doesn't mean anything if you can't hit the dang wide receiver where it needs to be. So, hey, man, good defenses for both. Low scoring game. A&M, dude, they're 4-3, man. They are going to
Yeah.
be Texas 8-4 forever. Like, they are
Especially,
legitimately like it's like death, taxes, and Texas 8-4, man. Like, it's
I mean,
it
better than
doesn't matter
five and
who they
seven.
recruit.
Better than 5-7, if you
It
ask
is
me.
better
But
than
yeah,
five and
it
seven,
is
but
it is 8-4 season for A&M, 100%. That is like without if I could bet somewhere, like what will A&M's final record be at the end of this year? Get like a 8-4 prop there. I will like hammer it right now because that's where this team is heading. And if you're A&M, I mean, they're what do you do? What do you do with this? Because it's not like they've been terrible. They've been good. It's just they played a tough schedule, but they still are losing these games that you could argue they could win. I mean, what do you do with Jimbo?
dude, it's just funny. Like, there's a guy on Twitter called Message Board Geniuses or something like that, and
Yep.
he posts like all the message board rants. And the Texas A&M one after losing to Tennessee was crazy. They were talking about like burning down the whole program and like all these other things. So it,
Hey,
it was it was a fun read, man. Just because of how much money has been pumped into Texas A&M's football program, and the fact that they are not getting results to replicate that is for me as coming from a smaller budget school, that's freaking hilarious. But hey, man, won't harp on it too much because if I were if that was my team, I would be pretty upset about it. But hey, let's go ahead. Let's keep it in the SEC here, and let's go ahead and take a victory lap for your Gators, 41-39. South Carolina made it a little interesting towards the end, but the Gators are able to hold on. Um, good win, good win for the Gators. How do you feel about it, man? I know you had your eyes on this one.
This was easily the best win I think the Gators have had in a while. The Tennessee win, I think, was really fun at the beginning of this year, but Gators kind of controlled that game from the jump. This one was like a come from behind win. They were down by 10 points going into the fourth quarter against South Carolina, and they just got the crazy fourth down conversions. They just made plays, man. And listen, I know Graham Mertz is not. He's got a ceiling. It's not like Graham Mertz is going to put up Bo Nix or Michael Penix numbers out here, but Graham Mertz has like quietly been pretty good, man. Like everyone was trashing Florida for
He
getting
had
him
really
in the
good
portal.
stats.
He's done what he's supposed to do. Like again, he's not going to light it up in the world. He's not like a elite downfield passer, but he's doing exactly what he needs to do in the system. And frankly, Florida's offense has been the strength of this team so far.
Well,
And
I'm
they've had
starting to
some
think
receivers
that
step up.
I'm starting to think that Graham Mertz was actually a pretty solid quarterback all along, but he was held back by that Big Ten West offense. As we know, the Big Ten West doesn't like to play offense. Like the Big Ten West, it's like if I can't run the ball down your throat, we're just not going to score. That's the Big Ten West. Um, Minnesota did it for the longest time, Mo Ibrahim and all those boys, and Wisconsin does it all the time. And basically, yeah, that is the Big Ten West. We will never throw the ball on you. Just please let me run it down your throat. But anyway, when that doesn't work, I will say this: South Carolina's 2-4. I'm about to make a lot of money. I'm sure you put some money on it too.
Oh yeah.
I got a fat stack on that under 6.5, so it's looking good right now.
The fact that we got it at 6.5. See, this is why we do win totals. If you're listening and you listen to our win totals podcast or watch them on YouTube over the summer, the reason why we do this is because of this, like instances like this. Because we did our breakdown in South Carolina, and we looked into it, and we're like, this team is not winning 7 games. In fact,
legitimately,
they're winning 6 games.
If South Carolina finishes the season hot and goes 4-2, we still hit. Like,
oh yeah, that one's money in the bank.
It's fantastic.
But the crazy thing is, with South
I've got
Carolina,
a fat stack on that.
But real quick though, with South Carolina, I do want to say we were kind of trashing Spencer Rattler and win totals. He is 100% not the problem with this team, because Spencer Rattler is actually like
their offensive line
really
is terrible.
He's playing really well. Yeah. So it's not Rattler is the issue. It's lines of scrimmage, obviously, but we knew that. But yeah, and watching Spencer Rattler in person, I'm like, okay, like this dude actually is probably going to be drafted like late day 1 or early day 2, which was shocking to me. But that's apparently the projection on him right now, and I kind of see it.
Hey, good for him, man. He went from we want Caleb to hey, day 2 pick. So,
man, do you think those NFL teams during his interviews at the combine are going to pull up his QB1 or his tape from the high school?
They'll be like, yeah, what do you think about this? Like, if we start you over our quarterback over here, you just can tell him he sucks. Like,
oh man, that's hilarious.
But anyway, man, let's jump ship.
Missouri?
Let's jump ship.
Missouri.
Okay,
I think we have another.
I was going to head a different direction. But we can head to Missouri because we can talk about some snake oil.
We got victory laps
being
to
the
take,
state,
man.
The state of Kentucky, snake oil state. But anyway, no. Look, I actually put a good amount of money on the Mizzou over. I was pretty confident in it. Once we did the research for win totals, I believe it was 7 games, 6.5 or 7 is where I got Mizzou. Yeah,
6.5.
And I said, dang, I can see them winning 8 or 9. Like it's like it was like Washington State last year. It was just one of those teams. I'm like, they're too well rounded. They play in the SEC East, not the West. Give me the over. Like, and I had them losing to K-State. And I still wanted them on the over. Look, they look like a great team, man. And they were able to prove it. I was a little scared a little earlier in that game because Kentucky was kind of giving it to them a little bit, playing a really tough game. But ultimately, they were able to pull away and win that one. And hey, ball don't lie. Missouri takes the pot there. And honestly, Missouri is probably the second best team in the SEC East.
They're 6-1.
Yeah, man. And I would say, I'm looking forward to the Missouri-Georgia game. I'm really looking forward to that because I think Missouri might be able to win or at least keep it close.
Well, again, let's not forget what was the one team last year during the regular season that almost beat Georgia and gave them a huge scare? That was
Yeah, but
Missouri.
cheeseburger kicker, like kind of messed up too in that game. So like we'll see, man.
Hey man, thicker kicker. He's had his highs like the K-State game this year, and he's had his lows too. But we won't talk about that. But dude, you know who Missouri has next week? They have South Carolina at home, probably a W, but we won't like completely
Never
say
know
that's a
though.
guaranteed W, but it should be a W. So they're more than likely going to be 7-1 going into that Georgia game, and they have a bye week to prepare for Georgia.
That over's cashing next week. Let's go.
They got Tennessee at home, Florida at home, and then they finish the year at Arkansas. Like
Oh man,
this could be probably 8-win team, probably an 8-win team, and then could be a 9-win team, and
I don't
then
know. They
best case
might win
scenario they
10,
win like
dude.
10.
They might win 10. And if they are able to squeak out against Georgia, they might F around and go to the SEC championship.
Man, are we ready for that? I
Let me
don't know
ask
if
you
we're
this,
ready for
Shub.
that.
Let me ask you this, Shub. Let me ask you this. We have to talk about this real quick since that has been put on the table. What if Missouri upsets Georgia and then somewhere along the way loses, but has a tiebreaker on Georgia, goes to the championship game? Okay, so let's say that's the scenario. Missouri's got one loss, whatever. Georgia's got one loss. Georgia doesn't play in their championship game, and they've played a cakewalk schedule, losing to like one of the only good teams that they played. Is Georgia still good in the playoffs at 11-1?
So I think just in general, an 11-1 Georgia team that doesn't play in the SEC championship game probably shouldn't get in the playoffs because they're not going to have the resume. But we all know like how the committee works. They may just say, "Oh, well, we know Georgia's a good team with a good roster, so
Mm-hmm.
we're just going to put them
They're
in."
probably like, oh, four seed. There you go. That'll show them.
But to your point though about Missouri, they did lose to LSU a couple weeks ago, so they do have one SEC loss. So if that situation was to happen,
That's
they
true.
would have to run the table. So like I don't think Missouri can afford a loss, but they
That's
still
true.
do control their own destiny. You beat Georgia head to head, you run the table. Very unlikely, but hey, we've seen crazier things happen in the sport.
I
That'd
would
be a
root
hell
for
of a
that.
dream, man.
I would root for that.
Man, how have the times changed? Remember last year our relationship with Missouri fans was just not very good.
I mean, look, the
How the
relationship
times
still
have
isn't
been.
good, Missouri fans. The relationship still isn't good, but we call a spade a spade. If the team looks good, we'll get behind him. If the team doesn't look good, we won't get behind him. Now, last year's Missouri team, we weren't very high on. This year's Missouri team, we're pretty high on. We're not going to call it one way just because we think it's going to hurt. We don't want to hurt your feelings. We call a spade a spade. And this year, and look, I still don't have the best of relationships with the Missouri fans. I'm still a little salty about how we were treated by the Missouri fans. But I can still acknowledge that I think you guys have a great team this year, and I think you guys are on a great path. And truly, like I'm an Eli Drinkwitz hater. I think he's an absolute dork, but he's getting results. He is getting
Yeah,
results. He's over here like fetal position, grabbing a guy in midair when they get like the commitment from the 5-star, and I'm just sitting here
Crocs.
like, dude, this is like the most cringy coach I've ever seen in
He's
my
rocking
life.
like Crocs and cargo shorts.
Yeah, like this is the and he looks like the dude that got a wedgie at recess from all the jocks. Like, I mean, legitimately. And but he's getting results, and
Yep.
that's what matters. This is a results-based business, and as little respect as I would have for Eli Drinkwitz, I can't deny that the man is winning football games and that he is getting recruits to go to Columbia that really have no business going to Columbia, Missouri. So that program is doing really well. Tip of the cap to you, Missouri fans. Talk all the BS you want. We can still have a rocky relationship, but I'm still going to acknowledge when things are good on your end.
Well said. Well said. At the end of the day, we're just umpires calling balls and strikes out here. Well, real quick, one last SEC game before we move off here, because I think I kind of want to go into the Big 12, but I'll defer that to you where you want to go next. Alabama, Arkansas. Now, Alabama won by 3 points. I
Close.
was kind of half paying attention to this game. And then in the fourth quarter, Arkansas had a surprising comeback, put it that way. And I started paying attention in the fourth quarter. Then Alabama just kind of was able to sit on the ball and ice this one out. But Arkansas kind of low key made this one close. Jalen Milroe did not look good in this one. 10 of 21. KJ Jefferson had a fairly good day passing wise against, Alabama, the number one defense in the country. From that perspective, I think he had a good day. But yeah, it was kind of one of those games where if you're Alabama, probably a little bit of a letdown snoozer, but Alabama can still win these types of games. do we still think Alabama has an 11-1 season in the cards, or do you think there will be a loss in there?
I think they might F around and go 11-1, dude. And I know like preseason, we were looking at them and we were like, dude, no quarterback. They don't even know who their quarterback is. You know, there's all this uncertainty. They don't have a true like defined like set of wide receivers that I would call like elite. They're gonna take a step back. I can see them losing at least 2 games, dude. Now that I look at it and I look at their schedule and everything, I'm like, God, they might still go 11-1, and they they might still go to the championship game. LSU is like their only major obstacle. If they get past LSU, they're going 11-1.
And they got all their bigger games at home too, which is huge. They've had the scheduling dynamics definitely work in their favor this year, but yeah, man, it's I did not see this one coming, especially remember that USF game about a month or so ago. After
Yeah.
that USF game, if you were to tell us right there and then, oh yeah, this team's still going 11-1 and is going to play in the SEC championship, probably be like, dude, no shot, absolutely no shot. But
Yeah, you're
hey,
being
it
a
is what
homer.
it
Yeah,
is.
like
But real quick, Arkansas is 2-5.
yeah, that overplay I picked is cooked. Thank God I didn't put money on it. But in terms of our picks on this channel, that shit is done. That is cooked. And honestly, I'm more shocked not by the fact that they're going under, but in the manner in which they are going under. Like they are 2-5. That is so shocking to me. I think they lost to BYU, right?
They
They
did.
beat or lose it. They
They
lost to
lost to
BYU, which
BYU.
was an
Yeah.
absolute shocker to me.
Yep.
Um, well, look, even taking the BYU over, I didn't think they're going to beat Arkansas. But hey, man, I don't know what to. I don't know. I guess some of the pieces they lost in the portal, they just weren't able. They weren't able to replenish, or they didn't have the depth to support. But either way, man, I'm just so shocked because they had quality players returning offensive line. You had KJ Jefferson returning. They brought some people in, a wide receiver. I mean, look, you lose your best safety in Catalan to Texas, but I mean, ultimately, I mean, they still had a good squad. So
Yeah.
disappointing if you're an Arkansas Razorback fan.
Yeah, I don't think it's not fair. I don't think it's unfair to say that this team is like kind of underachieving a little bit. I know they have a tough schedule. I know they got to play a really tough schedule every year. They're just buried in the SEC West, but still, like I think they're better than 2-5. All I'm saying.
I do too. And before we move on to the Big 12 shoot, we have to give a brief shout out just because Gonzo's not here right now, so we got to at least shout out his Tigers for slaying the Tigers of Auburn, 48-18. Not really making that much of a contest. LSU's so inconsistent, man. I mean, LSU can come out one day and just absolutely slaughter you, and then one game they can come out really flat-footed, and you don't know what LSU team you're going to get. But when LSU's playing their A game, they're pretty dang tough to beat. And Hugh Freeze was on the receiving end of that. So
I mean, if LSU didn't have two losses, if they were like an undefeated team right now, and the way Jaden Daniels has been playing, like Jaden Daniels would probably be like one of the top leaders of the Heisman race right now. But because they have two early losses, I feel like people are just kind of writing them off. I mean, it's completely the defense. We all know that. That's the reason why this team's being held back. But like their offense is like really freaking good.
shoot, before we move into the Big 12, I just got a message, not a message, like a little news dinger. Um, is Dov Kleiman, is that a reputable source?
Yeah. He's the NFL guy,
So
though, right?
okay, so yeah, so here's what he just said. He said, report Caleb Williams representatives want to make it known that USC quarterback Caleb Williams wants partial ownership of the NFL team that drafts him in the 2024 draft.
Oh, man.
He's demanding to be a partial owner of the team.
Bro. See,
He might not go number one now. Like his stock might drop because of this shit.
this is weird timing to say that. Why in the middle? Why would you say that now? Oh, that's
It's crazy stuff, man.
dude.
Crazy stuff. I'll send it to you. I'll
Yeah.
send it to you.
Dude, that's just like listen, I know we're all about NIL and player empowerment these days. And listen, they do deserve all that, but like, man, let's not go overboard and sort of overplay your hand here, if you want to put it that way. Like, come on, man.
Partial ownership. I'd be like, sure, I'll give you partial ownership. You want a 50,000th of a share in the team?
Yeah, that's man, that's the world we live in these days, man. That's the new way
Look,
it's gonna go.
if he sticks to that, he legitimately like I don't know. He might legitimately drop past like the top 15. Eventually, someone past that will probably be like, sure, I'll give you something So there's going to be someone desperate enough, maybe, and maybe that's what he's going for. But he legit might get himself out of the top 5 in draft stock because of that. Because I don't think teams want to give them like a significant proportion of their capital forever.
Yeah, agreed. That's going to turn some people off. We'll see how that plays out, though. I'll be very interested to see how that ends up playing out. But like, Caleb, bro, you got like a Pac-12 championship and a college football playoff race to go chase here.
I don't think this man cares anymore. He's like, oh, we lost to Notre Dame. We're not going to the championship. Let me get my NFL going.
I mean, Notre Dame was not a
That's what it seems
Pac-12 game.
like.
They're still number 1 in the Pac-12 in the standings, so they don't have a Pac-12.
I think he's thinking playoff, and he's like, oh, we lost a game, no more playoff. Even though like they're USC, if they just win out, the media will probably put them in. But still, man,
that's an
still.
SMH right there. Well, do we want to go into the Big 12 next?
Yeah, we should, because I need to shout out my team real quick. Oklahoma State, like playing really good the last 2 weeks after I thought they were going to go 4-8 or 3-9. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out. Who would have known that giving the ball to your best players would actually work? And they have done that in back-to-back weeks, and all of a sudden Oklahoma State's offense has a pulse. Oh my God. Giving the ball to our best running back yields rushing yards. Throwing the ball to our best receiver yields passing yards. Oh my God. But anyway, good win for OSU. Let's move on. Because I can get bogged down in that forever, man.
I mean, it's just a roller coaster season. I think it's got to be worth noting. Like a few weeks ago, this is a team that got like annihilated at home at Boone Pickens by South Alabama, and then they've just won back-to-back ranked wins.
Mike Gundy actually came out and talked about that, and he said the South Bama game was entirely on me and the coaching staff. He said he apologized to the team for the game plan and said, look, we did such a bad job with the game plan. We did such a bad job as coaches that our players didn't even have a chance. They didn't even have a chance to like go in the starting gate into that game. Like, he said the game plan was that bad.
See, Gundy doesn't.
Mike Gundy legitimately said that.
Gundy doesn't listen to the Saturday Scholars College Football podcast, because if he did, he probably would have taken South Alabama a little more seriously. Put it that way.
He said they were a good team even in the pregame. He said, hey, look, this team won 10 games last year. Da, 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 da. But he said he was preaching to his team all week that they were a good team. Obviously, he didn't preach it hard enough. but yeah, man. But let's move on here into the Big 12. Do you have any games that you really want to jump into? I know we briefly mentioned West Virginia, Houston.
Yeah, I don't think we need to mention that. I don't think West Virginia fans want to hear about that anymore, despite the fact that they still have everything in front of them for the most part. They only have one conference loss. They do play Oklahoma State. We're going to pick that game because all of a sudden Oklahoma State versus West Virginia is kind of like a semi-relevant game, so we're going to pick it.
I mean, whoever loses is out of the race. So
yeah, and whoever is in it is going to be 3-1 in conference play, which didn't seem possible not too long ago. But anyways, how about TCU? I mean, I think all these Big 12 teams this year have been on roller coaster seasons. TCU has looked like a dead team the last few weeks, and then all of a sudden, I think everything just clicked again, and they beat the tar out of BYU 44-11. So I don't know what TCU did differently this week, but it's like, hey, finally, this is what we kind of expected. Where has this been? Three losses later.
I believe this was a new quarterback starting this week, if I'm not mistaken. I believe Hoover got his first start, Josh Hoover. And he killed it. He had 4 touchdowns and 400 yards. So he did throw 2 interceptions, but I mean, it is a new quarterback playing in there. So I think that has something to do with it. I could be wrong. He might have started last week. I didn't watch TCU last week. But yeah, man, that quarterback's looking pretty good in the absence of Chandler Morris. So maybe that has something to do with it. You know what would be so funny? What if TCU went off to be like this great team with this backup quarterback, and this would be 2 years in a row where Sonny Dykes chose Chandler Morris, and the backup was the guy who's like much better and like lifted them to, winning like all these games. That would be insane.
Dude, it almost escaped my mind. I completely forgot about Josh Hoover. But yeah, he came in relief of Chandler Morris last week and during the Iowa State game, and they both weren't playing well, but it completely crossed my mind. And then, of course, he got the start this week against BYU. So, yeah, if you're a TCU fan, let us know in the comments. If you're listening, if you're a Horned Frogs fan, what do you think of that? Is Hoover the guy moving forward?
Curious to see that. What happened? You remember like Slovis's freshman season, we were like, man, this guy's special. Like this guy's gonna be good. Because as a freshman at USC, he was lighting it up. We're like, man, he's only gonna get better. That man did the complete opposite. He pulled a Benjamin Button of football. He went from like playing like a senior and then progressively getting worse with every season. And I don't even know what to say, man. But Slovis just BYU's got a limitation with Slovis.
Yeah, I still think BYU is still a decent team that can
They're very
obviously
well
make a bowl.
coached. They're very
But
well coached, but the quarterback is their limitation.
yeah, Iowa State, man, they are 3-1 in Big 12 play somehow. I
I
don't
don't
know
know
how.
how that is possible, man.
I
My
don't know
under for
either.
them is done, and I put money on that one too. So
Dude,
that's
they're gonna
not.
make a bowl game. They're
I
four and
know, man.
three.
I took Iowa State under 4.5.
Oh
That shit's
man.
done, dude. Um, but yeah, man. I mean, hey, you know what, Matt Campbell, uh, great job. I just have to say, great job. I, they lost so much to the little gambling crisis, and they're still able to come out on top and win all these games that I didn't think they could win. Great job, Matt Campbell. Great job. I
Cincinnati
think
is
that one
0.
fan telling him he's on the hot seat really lit his ass on fire. Like it really
Yeah, I believe ever since then they've won every single game, if I'm not mistaken. But anyhow, yeah, they defeated Cincinnati 30-10. Cincinnati still does not have a Big 12 win. They're still looking for their first one. Houston got their first Big 12 win versus an OG member by the luck of the Hail Mary. So they finally broke that curse. I don't think anybody would have suspected Houston, of all the four teams, would be the first one to beat an OG Big 12 member. UCF still is winless.
dude.
BYU is winless.
The newcomers are struggling. The newcomers are really struggling. They're all at the bottom half of the league right now.
And you know what? I think it's rightfully so. It should be that way. Like
I think
you,
it's rightfully so, but I did not expect it to be so. But hey, man, we'll see how the final standings shake out because that's what's going to matter at the end of the day. Speaking of a team who's at the bottom of the Big 12 standings, who we really did not expect to be there, who has really preseason just been trending so upward that we thought they might even be taking over the Big 12 really soon, taking a loss to Kansas State, Texas Tech, 38-21 in Lubbock. Big loss for the Red Raiders. Red Raiders look absolutely dreadful this year. And we expected big things from them. They might not go to a bowl game.
yeah, Texas Tech still is like they're going deep down the depth chart though because of quarterback injuries. Jake Strong had to play a majority of this game in relief of Bayron Morton. Jake Strong threw 3 interceptions. I believe he's Tech's third string quarterback. Yeah, it's not looking
He
good for
is.
Texas Tech.
Shook
But
Morton than him.
on the other side of the ball, though, I think we also have a quarterback controversy. But I don't. It's a good quarterback controversy because K State's given Avery Johnson, true freshman, 4-star recruit, 96th grade, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head. They're giving him some action, man, and in small sample sizes, he's getting it done. He's looking good, dude.
He threw just as many passes as Will Howard, and he ran for like 4 touchdowns, I think.
He
So
ran for 5 touchdowns.
five,
That
yeah.
leads
So
into
I
my
mean,
Shuby snack.
he's an elite rusher, man. He legitimately might be better than Will Howard.
I think he is, dude. You can't deny 5 touchdowns on the ground. He went 13 for 90 with 5 touchdowns on the ground, and then he was 8 of 9, 77 yards, 94 QBR on just 9 passes, granted, but still, that is a Shuby snack. True freshman for Kansas State. Like, listen, we don't want to overreact here, but there is a chance that he might be better than Will Howard, like right now.
Kansas State's in a great position. Look, I know the year hasn't started the way they wanted to. 4-2 is not bad, but I'm sure they expected to be 5-1 or 6-0 at this point in the season. But hey, man, they've got a bright future. Look, you've got DJ Giddens. He's been a really bright spot, and we did not expect. We thought it was going to be Trishawn Ward, who had a good game this week. But DJ Giddens has been the name that we didn't have our eyes on preseason. And then Avery Johnson. I'm telling you, man, there's Kansas State. I'm just convinced is always going to have somebody and to like figure it out. They're just a good team, very well coached, and they develop really well. That's why I like Kansas State. Hats off to them.
Could Kansas State be one of those teams this year that finish the season really strong? Maybe they finish like 9-3 and they finish at the top of the Big 12 standings, but they're probably going to miss out because of they got to play Texas at Texas this year. But I
I
feel
think
like
it's
they could be one of
possible.
those teams
Yeah.
that that finishes the year strong and sort of finishes how everybody expected them to, but got off to a bad start. I could see
I
them
still can't
being
believe they
one of those
lost to
teams.
OSU.
That
I don't
that
know
one
how.
was, yeah, I don't know how either. They played very poorly in that game, and Will Howard, honestly, I feel like was a big reason why they lost. He did not play well, but I,
I think
I
Will
think,
Howard threw 3 picks that game. So yeah.
yeah, I think now is a little bit of a buy low point on Kansas State. We're going to put this in terms of the stock market. That's how I would describe them,
I
but
mean, if they finish third in the conference, still, I would not be shocked.
they still got to go at Texas in a few weeks, so that'll be the ultimate test for them on their season.
Well, lucky for
Well,
them, I think other teams are going to lose. Other than OU and Texas, I think other teams are going to lose more than 2, 3, maybe 2 or 3 games. So,
indeed. So you want to go into the Big Ten because there's something that needs to be addressed here with the Big Ten. There's a huge elephant in the room. It's in the Big Ten West. We already kind of mentioned it off
yeah,
camera.
we
Like,
know
there's something that needs to be addressed here.
the said fest that was the Big Ten West Championship, Wisconsin versus Iowa, the battle of just two incompetent teams. Um, Wisconsin, and we were talking about this. The Big Ten West is I'm going to run the ball, and if that doesn't work, shit, boy, I better hope my kicker's better than yours, like because we're not going to be able to pass on you. And that's exactly what this Iowa Wisconsin game was, man. Wisconsin has always relied on their running backs. Running backs couldn't get the job done this time. Iowa comes out on top, and Iowa even got a safety in traditional Iowa fashion, man. I mean, this is like traditional Iowa. Iowa always finds a way to like not complete a pass to a receiver, still win, to like to throw for under 100 yards and still win, to like always do like some kind of like offensive abomination and still win the football game. Like it's insane to me, and that's because they play in the Big Ten West, which is just a terrible division outside of like Wisconsin and Iowa. That conference, that side of the conference is just terrible, terrible.
Iowa only had 37 passing yards in this game, just 37, and they won.
And they still won. And then the week before that, what they had no completions to wide receivers, right?
Yep, they had
And they
five.
still won.
They had 5 completions to the tight end, 1 to the running back, and 0 to any wide receivers. Like, you weren't here last week, but we talked about that. I was like,
if you're a recruit, man, and Iowa comes calling, how do you just go like, oh, awesome, yeah, I'll go out there and block. Like
it blows my
legitimately.
mind. Like, how do they do this? How can they get
How
away
did
with
Iowa
this?
ever have so many 4-star wide receivers on their roster? Like Arlen Bruce was a 4-star, he left. Keegan Johnson was a 4-star, he left. Like, how was Iowa able to like schmeggle all these guys into signing a letter of intent to go play for them and block?
Well, that's the worst part
Oh,
is that like the guys actually have talent. Like the receivers that left, like you just mentioned, like those dudes are actually like they're talented dudes. It's not like they're just complete
I mean,
scrubs.
Iowa's defense is so good every year, despite who they lose, man. Could you imagine if they had a half competent offense? They would legitimately like probably be able to beat the Penn States, Ohio States, and Michigans of the world if they just had a half competent offense.
I bet
But
Iowa's recruiting pitch to all those receivers is like, yo, man, like our offense is so bad. How about you come here? You get to be the guy. We're so bad that you come here, you're going to be the one receiver that we're going to throw to every single time because we got nobody else. You're going to be our
every
guy.
single time. And hey, we averaged 3 passes to wide receivers, but all 3 going to you, baby.
So listen, the rest of Iowa's schedule. Are you ready for this? Are you ready for me to read you the rest of Iowa's schedule?
They're going to have a really good finish. They're going to win at least 10.
Minnesota, Northwestern, Rutgers, Illinois, Nebraska.
Yeah, they're winning at least 10.
And 4 out of those 5 games are at home.
Yeah.
This team might go 11-1.
And they're not even good. That's the funny thing.
The best part is they already have the head-to-head win over Wisconsin. So they already have that in their back pocket. So realistically, Iowa can afford to pick up another
I took them in
conference
the team
loss.
draft, man. Like the voodoo is real with Iowa. The Iowa black magic, the voodoo they do in the locker room before games, it always works.
How can they
We got to
keep
get
getting
shirts
away with this?
printed that says Iowa voodoo, man, because like
really
legitimately
do.
it always it never fails. Iowa, no matter what they lose on defense, no matter who they get on offense, the offense always sucks and the defense is always amazing enough to lead them to 8 to 10 wins. It's absolutely like shocking to me.
So at the beginning of the year, if I told you Iowa's going to lose Cade McNamara for the season. He's going to suffer a season-ending injury. They are going to play in a game. Let's just pick one random game from the year. They are going to not complete a single pass to a wide receiver. Knowing those two things, if I then told you they're going to go maybe 11-1 or 10-2, and they are going to win the Big Ten West, how believable would I be?
Actually, Iowa is the one case scenario where I would say that's very believable.
Yeah, exactly.
Like legitimately, Iowa is the only team that has ever existed and walked on the face of the earth where I would be like, that is very believable. What, Iowa had 3 offensive yards and they still won? Yeah, 100%.
If you're an Iowa fan, if you're listening to this, are you even like happy or excited to be potentially going to the Big Ten championship game? Like the thought of going 11-1 or 10-2 and going to the Big Ten championship game, are you even like excited about that? Because like we all know what the result's going to be. Like, come on. We already saw them play Penn State earlier in the year. Remember what happened when they played Penn State earlier in the year? They lost 30-0. So it's like, are you even excited in going to the Big Ten championship game? Because you're going to get your brains beat out by Ohio State, Penn State, or Michigan. So it's like,
I mean, they're lucky
I
they
don't
play
know.
in the West. That's all I have to say. They played in the East. They have 3 losses easy on the schedule.
Yeah, it just blows my mind, man. I don't know how they can do this. They're in the top 25 now, by the way. A team that can't even like
Pseudo.
complete a pass to a receiver is ranked.
Iowa can go 11-1, and I still wouldn't see them as a top 25 team. Like legitimately.
Dude, they're going to the Big Ten championship game. Like I don't see how they don't. Like their schedule is so bad. Well,
I mean, that's why they're going to go 11-1. Their schedule's so bad that they can average like 50 yards of offense per game and still go 11-1. That's how bad their schedule
it
is,
is ridiculous.
and how
All
good their
right.
defense is.
Well, since we're in the Big Ten here, we might as well run down quickly the
Zanny
rest of
Bar,
it.
Iowa.
Yeah. Well, Zany Bar to Iowa, but I also want to give them a Shuby snack just for doing this in the most Iowa fashion possible, because
Legitimately.
it's like it's the voodoo, man. Michigan blows out Indiana. Remember when Indiana had a 7-0 lead early on them? It seems like Michigan does this like every single week. It's like opposing team gets a touchdown to start the game. It's like, oh, whoa. And then, yeah, 52-7, 48-0, 45
That's
to
all we need to
3.
say about that. I mean, Michigan's schedule's a cakewalk. We'll wait until they play Penn State, Ohio State. Other than that, I don't
Yeah.
really care about who Michigan plays because it's gonna be a killing.
Ohio State, same story against Purdue. Penn State, 63-0 over UMass. Penn State plays Ohio State. It's about time these two, like the heavyweights in the Big Ten, are finally playing one each other, because I'm tired of every single week watching them play like the middle to bottom tier of the conference, which is terrible. It's like
Mm-hmm.
about damn time they finally play each other, because it's really annoying, man. The conferences like the Big Ten that are really top heavy, it's I'm kind of over it, but I'm ready to see them finally play each other. So thank God for that. So I think we have a Zanny bar that you talked about that you want to give out, but for the Michigan State Rutgers game.
Boy, man, like holy crap! Yeah, we talked about this before we started recording. I mean, 30-10 lead with 7 minutes left. Um, you still lose the game? Oh no, sorry, this is a different team.
Oh, this is
I was reverting back to Boise, but they were up what, like 24-6 or something like that.
yep.
Michigan State was up 24-6, and wow, man, you still lose to Rutgers, and it's not like, look, we're higher on Rutgers than we normally are, but it's not like Rutgers. Like in that situation, if you're up 24-6 against Rutgers, I don't care who you are, you're saying Rutgers is done. They don't have the offense to score 3 touchdowns in 1 quarter. You still lose to Rutgers, man. I was sitting there thinking, God, my Michigan State under might be in jeopardy. No, it's looking pretty good.
That Rutgers over, though. It is cash. It is in the bank. Let's go over by
Over by
Halloween.
October.
And
Yeah.
man, they might be bowling by Halloween, because they're playing the Big Ten. So shout out to Rutgers, man. 5-2 on the year. Illinois, shout out the Illini getting a surprising win against Maryland at Maryland too.
I don't know how the hell that happened. At
I don't
least that
know either.
Maryland over still looks pretty solid, but man, how do you lose to Illinois at home, man?
Were they
Especially
hung
Luke
over?
Altmaier? Like, man.
Were they hung over after that Ohio State loss, where they really like were right in the game until the very end there and somehow still didn't cover? I don't
It's
know.
crazy.
Doesn't
It's
make
crazy.
sense.
I was happy about that though. I was on the right end of that, so
SMH, man. I had a lot of grudges
Yeah,
the
yeah.
other week.
Two games, two separate games for those of you listening. For Shub last week, he lost covers on because of interceptions or pick sixes, basically.
Well, I think we've covered a majority of the Power Five here, unless there's a conference that I'm missing. But I feel like if you're ready, we can. Oh no, there's still one game we haven't covered in the Power Five yet before we head to the G5. There's still one
Drop it on
game.
me.
It is a Gonzo grudge, and that game is the Friday night thriller between Stanford and Colorado.
Oh my God,
You want to
man.
lead the way on this one?
You want to talk about like this was the week for blowing huge leads. 29-0 at halftime, and you still lose the game. Not only did you lose the game, you lost to, it's not even like a good team came back on you. This is Stanford, who lost their entire freaking team to the portal or graduation or the NFL and replaced like nobody. They were last in net tarp rating. This is the Stanford Cardinal running out there, and then I can't even recall the receiver's name, but he played like an absolute. He went in absolute demon mode. He mossed. He absolutely mossed Travis Hunter.
I can't even say his name.
Yeah, he mossed Travis Hunter for a touchdown late in the game, and I gotta say, man, like they got some humble pie there, especially Travis Hunter on that touchdown catch. My goodness, man. I mean, Shadur Sanders is second in passing yards in the NCAA right now, but I mean, it's really not showing on the record books. So,
a couple things.
I don't know how you lose that. That's unforgivable.
It is unforgivable. Two things here. One, Elick Ayomanor. I think I said his name right. I probably butchered it because I always do. But
that dude killed it.
The Stanford receiver, just for reference, for those of you who don't know, 13 for 294 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, he had legitimately 300 receiving yards, and it was all mainly in the second half too. Absurd. And they were down 29-0 at halftime. Absolutely just insanity. And the other thing too, I want to give out, well, I can't give out a Zanny bar since you're here, but if you would do me a favor and give a Zanny bar to Shadur Sanders for posting a link to his merch on his Instagram at halftime.
That's all he cares about, man. And I've heard Shadur Sanders being accused by other coaches in the Pac-12 who watch his tape of purposely, and they were saying this is why his sack rate is so high, of purposely taking sacks so it doesn't hurt his completion percentage.
Dude, that's honestly pretty wild, but I mean, it's kind of believable. I mean, I hope that's not the case.
I absolutely believe it.
Yeah,
I absolutely believe it with the way he's been behaving, man. And like, I think he's kind of a little shit, if I'm being honest. Like, he's playing well, but I think like from a personality standpoint, he's kind of a little shit. Like flexing his watch, his like $10,000 watch on the, the Arizona State student section and all these other things. Why are you wearing that in a game to begin with? A helmet hits that, it's broken. Because to him, that's nothing. Let's get another one. I mean, like when you're the son of Deion Sanders, look, Shiloh, the safety, he doesn't have a big head like that. And I know this because Shiloh has a YouTube channel and posts vlogs on there. Shadur is the one who's got like the big head, but Shiloh is the more chill of the brothers. But yeah, man, I mean, Shadur is making himself very difficult to like right now. I will say that.
And if you're Colorado, just the team, look at the rest of the schedule. At UCLA, Oregon State, Arizona, at Washington State, at Utah. I don't think they're winning the game the rest of the year.
That sucks for me, dude, because I was over like, yes, they're going to hit the over. I was the one that took the over.
Well, they did. They already like hit it.
Did they?
You got it.
I thought
you got it at 3.5. Thankfully for you.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah, dude, that was the first win total to cash was Colorado.
Okay, because I was scared because at first I was like, shit, is that at 4.5? Because I don't think I'm gonna get it.
No, that one already cashed, man. Gonzo put out a short about it too on the channel.
Good for me. Yeah,
but yeah, that's rough. So G5 action. We want to cover some important games in the G5 real quick. Shout out to Air Force.
Oh yeah, those are my boys. Those are my boys.
Dude, I'm low-key kind of jealous, man. I'm low-key kind of pissed because Air Force was my team last year.
I got them late too.
You did.
I got Air Force so late too.
That was a phenomenal.
It's one of my last picks.
Phenomenal pick in the team.
I was high on them. I saw their win total and I saw their schedule and I'm like, okay, Air Force, yeah, I like it. That's because as soon as I saw, like, I knew for a fact, like, you guys were going to pick some other Mountain West teams first if you were going to go Mountain West. And I was like, yeah, I can if I'm gonna get like a G5 late, that's the move. I wanted Liberty. Dang you, Gonzo. Um,
Liberty's looking
but
good.
hey, I mean, yeah, because their schedule was so easy. I looked at their schedule. I just looked at Liberty's schedule and I was like, God, I need Liberty.
It's like the easiest
But
schedule I've ever seen.
yeah, legitimately, man. But I will take Air Force as a supplement. It's not a bad deal. But if I could have got both, oof, raps.
Air Force is
But
6-0. They're undefeated in Mountain West play. They're easily the favorite to win the league right now, especially since Boise took that conference loss to Colorado State that we already talked about earlier. It's looking like it's them. Wyoming now has a conference loss, obviously, because Air Force beat Wyoming. And then you still got Fresno State in the running. Fresno State had a stinker the other week, but they're 2-1. I think Fresno State's still in the mix. They're 6-1 with a conference loss. And then the one surprising team in the Mountain West that I feel like nobody's talking about, UNLV, the Rebels, coached by Christian Arroyo, right? He's still there, right? I'm not crazy.
you got to tell me about UNLV, man, because they've flown under my radar too. I didn't even know they were doing good this season.
They're 5-1, 2-0 in conference play.
Oh, you know who else is a solid team? Tulane going into Memphis, 31-21 win. Willie Fritz getting it done. Tulane looking like another 10-win season on the horizon potentially. Hey, you gotta love the Green Wave, man. Best team in the G5. I love me some Green Wave. I'd love to see them get into a Power Five league.
Absolutely. Especially those uniforms, man. Those teal unis that they got there. I love those for
Oh,
Tulane.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. It's crazy to think that Tulane could have been in the SEC like 30 years ago, but their president blocked it.
They just wanted the old academics, man. That was the old excuse. Oh, well, the SEC is not a great academic conference. We want to go somewhere with academic prestige. So we want to go somewhere where,
The American baby.
yeah, the American conference, whatever conference they were in back then in the 80s, this was long
Hmm.
before the American
Oh
was a
yeah, for
thing.
sure. But
But
still, they're in the American now.
yeah, so SMU back on track, 42 or 4-2 on the season, 31-10 over ECU. Memphis Tulane was kind of, I think those are two teams that could potentially rematch in the American Championship game, Tulane and Memphis, but probably unlikely since Memphis has a head to head loss to them and you still got SMU in the mix.
Hmm.
But shout out to Navy, man. I had a lot of preseason stock in Navy and they're starting to finally get it going. 14-0 over Charlotte, 3-3. So happy about that. CUSA, we already talked a little bit about CUSA and Liberty.
I was upset with Jack State. I thought they could do better, but not so much.
It's the Liberty show out there, man. It's Liberty and then maybe some Western Kentucky. But
Yeah, it's probably Liberty though.
we'll be picking that
But
game when they play each other in a couple weeks, by the way. How about the
Chadwell over
MAC?
there, man. Chadwell's going to ride Liberty to a high paying job at a big school. But
Do you have a Zany bar
anyway,
to give out to your Ohio Bobcats?
not the Ohio Bobcats. I was actually going to give one to my second alma mater, USF,
Hmm.
for losing 56-14 to FAU at home.
Oh yeah, my
My
bad for
God,
glossing
man.
over that.
My God, because look, I know that they have a 300% improvement in their record this year. They're 3-4, but like, how do you lose 56-14 to FAU? You're not playing Alabama. You're not even playing another Power Five like a Power Five opponent. And you lose 56-14 in your own house. That's just ridiculous.
Absolutely, especially since FAU is like they're basically UCF's replacement in the American. They took
Hmm.
they took their spot, and it's like then you just got run out of the building by that team. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's not a good
absolutely.
look at all for USF. Not a good look.
And I
But
think it's more of a grudge for me on Ohio than it is a Zanzibar.
yeah,
Because what the hell, Ohio? How do you lose to frickin' NIU, who was 2-4 going to that game? You guys looked so good this season outside of Rourke getting hurt in week 0. It hurts my play a little bit, but who knows? I think they can still make the MAC championship game. So
I
we'll
still
see. That's
think
their
they
first
will.
MAC loss. So I think they're yeah.
They got to beat Miami of Ohio, who's 3-0, which, by the way, Miami of Ohio is
They actually look
3-0 in
pretty
the
good.
East. And then you have Toledo is 3-0 in the West, which we're going to pick that game coming up on the next section of the pod, by the way. But yeah, man, Miami of Ohio is throwing a little bit of a wrench into our Ohio/Toledo Mac Fest that we're hoping for
Hey
here.
man, and they beat Cincinnati. It's a Power Five opponent.
That's right. Yeah, it shouldn't
Power
be
Four.
surprising since they beat Cincy earlier in the year. And then lastly, let's end it with the Sun Belt, man. The Fun Belt, always great every year. James
Bounce
Madison,
back for
dude.
Coastal. Oh yeah, James Madison. God, dude, it's so criminal that they're not allowed to play in their championship game.
Dude, it's
And how come no one's
absurd.
talking about James Madison's head coach getting poached, like ever? This is the second year in a row that they're doing this. Their first 2 years in the Power Five, or not Power Five, sorry, in FBS 1A, and they're absolutely destroying.
It doesn't make any sense. And I mean, dude, it can only go on for so long. By the way, Kurt Signetti is their coach. This is his 5th year at JMU, but
Dude, if I was an
I think
AD, I'd be looking at him hard.
I mean, dude, I kind of mentioned this on one of the other pods buried down at the G5 rundown. Like, if you're UVA, dude, if you're UVA, like James Madison's in your state, they beat you head to head. Get Tony Elliott's ass out of there and just go like right down the street to JMU
I
and
mean,
poach their guy.
legitimately, how is no one talking about this guy? It's not like he's got a bunch of like 4-star, 5-star athletes in a 2-star conference like Deion Sanders did with Jackson State. Like legitimately, he's winning games with equal or lesser talent. It's
And,
crazy.
and it's with a quarterback transition too, because last year they had Signetti, who's a very good G5 quarterback.
Centeo.
Centeo, sorry. And then this year they have Jordan McLeod. Jordan McLeod is like having a phenomenal year for them. He's just kind of like next man up. It's a terrific program. I think that's really all you got to say. And Georgia Southern is no
Legitimately.
scrub team either. But yeah, Troy shutting out Army. Georgia State bounce back. Georgia State, man. Our guy Marcus Carroll, running back. He's could be a team draft guy every now and then.
Dude, he's legitimately like a tutty every week, guaranteed.
He is, and he got one last week, of course,
No,
against
like I think
Marshall.
Marcus Carroll only has one game without a touchdown. Like legitimately.
We should probably start taking him a little bit more often in the team draft. We should probably pay a little bit more attention to
I took
G5.
him last
We
week, but
do.
as a reserve.
We do, but I feel like,
Actually, my starter got hurt, so I get his points. So yeah,
oh, true. Oh,
yeah.
there you go. All right. Well, I think we've covered everything, man. As I always say every week, Saturday Scholars, we go down in the weeds, man. We cover the G5. We have a lot of stake riding on everything here. I love it.
Yeah, we just love football.
Amen to that. All right. Well, thank you for watching. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Pod, thank you for listening. If you made it this far, enjoy our G5 rundown there at the end where we really go sicko mode. This is Shub and Zan, the Saturday Scholars. For our friend Gonzo's not here today, we are signing out. See y'all later. Have a great day.